Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome to Friday Reads, and I missed last week. I do apologise. It's a very busy week and this week's been very busy as well. So welcome to the coronavirus edition of Friday Reads. I'm fine, everyone I know is fine. My little town where I live hasn't announced a single case yet, so I'm very lucky. I hope you're in a similar situation. And the world has gone mad. There's a shortage of toilet paper. We'll all remember this time, not for the coronavirus, but for the absolute ridiculousness of hoarding toilet paper. Let me do a recap of the last 2 weeks, because it really has been a busy few weeks. Let's talk about books finished in the last 2 weeks, and audiobooks have really kept me going because, as you know, I've started a uni course. I'm driving backwards and forwards twice a week, 2 hours each way, so it's quite a lot of time in the car. So almost each week I'm finishing a new audiobook, so it's been absolutely glorious. It's really bumped up my reading levels, and I've just read some such amazing things in the last couple of weeks, and one or two not so great things. I've talked about The Dutch House, and that was only 2 weeks ago, I think. But I think I've mentioned it already. I can't say anything more because it's part of the BookTube Prize judging. Finished it, not rated it. Very, very soon, 1st of April, first week of April, you'll get an update of the BookTube Prize reading list that I've done. I have one more book, Kylie Reid's Such a Fun Age. I'm only just starting that this weekend. I had a break from BookTube judging reading, so I'm picking Such a Fun Age up this weekend. So, finished The Dutch House. Finished my first Agatha Christie, which I think I also mentioned, The Secret Adversary, which is a Tommy and Tuppence novel. Never read Agatha Christie before. It was marvellous, and I'll do a full review of it because it was such a fun book, and I've already gone and bought a bunch of books from a second-hand book fair that I went to last weekend. There's another big thing that happened in the last 2 weeks, and bought a whole bunch of books and a whole stack, a little mini stack of Agatha Christie's. So that's lots and lots of fun. I also finished this little number, A Portable Paradise by Roger Robinson. Now, if you've never heard of Roger Robinson, that's understandable. It is poetry. He was the winner of the T.S. Eliot Prize announced earlier this year, I believe in February. He's not on that 25 Gateway Poets list that I've been working my way through. I just heard about the winner of the T.S. Eliot Prize, thought I'd order this from the publisher rather than from a bookseller. So I ordered it directly from the publisher called what's the publisher? It's called Peepal Tree, and I'm not entirely sure what that means, but they publish a lot of poetry and beautiful little volumes like this. Again, I'll do a full review, but it was truly magical. Such a great thing to pick up, and so topical. The things he does poetry about are things that are happening in Britain right now. He talks about Brexit. He talks about the Windrush scandal. He talks about race in Britain. He talks about the Grenfell fire disaster that happened in London a little while back. So many topical things that he discusses, as well as just riffing on music that he likes and pastimes that he has, or someone's cooking, or someone's face, or he just riffs on just some wonderfully beautiful stuff. A Portable Paradise by Roger Robinson. I got one negative one, and I'll leave that for now, but I also finished this week, after having an experience with The Dutch House, without giving anything away. I went back and picked up the one before that, so I picked up Anne Patchett's Commonwealth. And again, I'll do a full review, but wow, I have a new favourite author. Really, I am not kidding you. I have a new favourite author. It is Anne Patchett. She does characterisation better than anyone I have ever read. Now, it's not high literary fiction like I normally read, but this writer writes characters so wonderfully, dialogue so naturally and convincing, and you just feel like you understand these people so well from page 1 through to page whatever. And Commonwealth tells the story of these tight-knit few families that live close by and know each other, sometimes tenuously, sometimes closely. And one event, and it's the party at the beginning of the book, one event throws these families in every direction, for good and bad. And the rest of the book is chasing after these threads of families busted apart by this one single event at a party. And wow, I mean, the party itself is so confusing and so raucous, you really have no idea what the hell is going on. And then over time it pieces all these characters and families back together. Man, it's such a beautifully woven story in such a digestible form that if you've never read Ann Patchett before, wow, I can urge you to read it. Commonwealth blew me away. Can't say anything about the Dutch House, although I may have just given it away anyway. But, and then everyone has already mentioned, when I mentioned I was reading the Dutch House, they said, oh, my favourite is Bel Canto. So now in a couple of weeks' time I'm going to pick up Bel Canto. Everyone has said that's amazing as well. So I really do want to read a lot of Ann Patchett because, seriously, she's just grabbed me so hard. And I'm so pleased that I found her because it's a book I would never have picked up. In either of these books, including Bel Canto, I would never have picked them up. And they're sensational. This one, Commonwealth, sensational. Also, right this week, I am reading Tara June Winch, The Yield. So the author, Tara June Winch, the book title, The Yield. It's an Australian book. It's up for a Stella Prize, which is the Women's Fiction Prize or the Women's Literature Prize in Australia. And it is also amazing. I'm still about half the way through. And I wasn't sure what to make of it at the beginning, but it really is laying down a beautiful story about an Indigenous woman who has lived overseas for a few years, and then a death in her extended family brings her back to the Indigenous community that she left, that she ran away from, that she has tried so hard to disconnect herself from. So it's an Indigenous story. It's a marvellous story. Again, a full review to come. Tara June Winch's The Yield. I do have the physical book. I should be going like this, but I left it on the table. The house is all the way up there, like 50 metres away, so I couldn't be bothered. So, that leaves me with, I'm reading one more. I'm reading, oh yes, here we go. I am reading a short story collection called Here Until August by Josephine Rowe. I'm only just kicking that off. I can't tell you anything about it, but I may have even mentioned 2 weeks ago and haven't really progressed, but it seems really good. It's nominated for the Stella Prize. Can't wait. Here Until August, short story collection by Josephine Rowe. And the other audiobook I've picked up since finishing Commonwealth, which was also an audiobook, refreshing for the car ride for my uni course, I've picked up one of the nominees, the long list nominees for the Women's Prize for Fiction, the UK Women's Prize for Fiction, which has writers like Bernardine Evaristo and others on it, is Girl by Edna OBrien. And it seems like it's a very short volume. On audio it's only 5 hours, which for audio is pretty small. It's a tiny, tiny book. So I'll do that in just a couple of days in the car, but it seems like a very harrowing story. So I'm not, when I kick off that next week, I'm really not sure how I'm going to feel about, a long car ride listening to what seems to be a very harrowing story about a woman abducted by Boko Haram, the terrorist organisation, and what she is subjected to. So it seems like pretty heavy going, but let's do it. I'll recap you next week about how that goes. That is Girl by Edna OBrien, long listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2020. Now, I have one negative for this week. It wasn't a bail. I don't give up on books very easily. I know I gave up on ducks, but I'm going to come back to it. But I'm going to have to do a full review of this one because it really was something I was expecting a lot more from and got nothing for my troubles. And it was The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Madhuri Vijay. So The Far Field, which is an Indian novelist. She's a novelist from Bangalore, now living in London, I believe. And it's about a rich, entitled girl living in Bangalore who, after the death of her mother, decides to travel north almost to the border of Pakistan, up into Kashmir, to look for a man that used to come to her house when she was a child selling clothing, and used to talk to her mother, and he would tell stories to them. And he was from Kashmir, so she's going to travel to Kashmir to try and find him decades later. Now, if that sounds like a ridiculous premise, it absolutely is. The quality of the writing in the first third of the book carries you forward 100%. And you're willing to let go of some of those crazy premises of the book, because the writing's so crystal clear and descriptive. But then not only do some plot problems start to develop, but the writing gets sloppy. It's like halfway through the book she just not gives up, but just, I don't know, it was a weird experience. And I'm going to have to do a full review to explain exactly what turned me off this book. It was more than just a crazy premise gone bad. There was some serious problems with this book that I wanted to discuss, and it's going to take a lot longer than I have today. So I finished it. Look, I finished it, 2 stars. I don't give 1 stars to really anything. And there was a lot to like in the first third, but there was almost nothing to like in the last 2/3. From my perspective, I mean, this thing's been loved by a lot of people. There's a lot of love for this book. It's been up for awards, and it's her first novel, and for that she should be given credit. And it's not a bad novel. It is a flawed novel, a seriously flawed novel. But I need to have a longer conversation with you about it, because there are some specifics that are just still haunting me. This was almost a full 2 weeks ago that I finished this, and it's still haunting me now, that I think, why on earth would this person put this in a book? Anyway, it's been a busy 2 weeks, so there's 4 or 5 books finished and a couple others on the go. I'm really enjoying university. I'm really enjoying the books I'm reading. I do need to get stuck into the final book of my BookTube Prize judging, which is such a fun age. And I might do another video soon about the books that I scored when I went to the book fair, the second-hand book fair, the charity book fair. Here it's called Lifeline Book Fest, and they happen in lots of parts of Australia, and it came to my city, and I scored a big bag of books, and I'll do it as a book haul coming up very soon. So, lots to update you on. I hope your couple of weeks have been fruitful and fun and enjoyable. Stay healthy wherever you may be, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, bye.